and we'll start. So July 8th, 2016, Samuel Rahan was found dead after being tied to a pole, beaten with a metal pipe. His murderers, 3 men he worked with at a rickshaw. According to the men, he'd stolen food from them, which fueled the reason to kill him. In an interview with Rahan's father, he said that he dropped out of school in order to help his family financially by selling vegetables. He was 13 years old. Hi, I'm Griffin Anderson, and we strongly support the resolution to halt all trade with nations that use child labor. My first assertion is that child labor puts all child's lives at risk. My reasoning behind this is that depending on the work the child is involved in, it could potentially be hazardous and dangerous to the child's well-being in their life. Whether they're working in a field, sweatshop, or a sawmill, all these things can put a child's life at risk. My evidence behind this is that in Jakarta, Indonesia, thousands of children face dangerous conditions while working on tobacco farms. They face sunburn from the hot sun, exposure to harmful pesticides, and also are exposed to nicotine, which seeps through their skin and can cause nausea, vomiting, dizziness, and headaches. This was stated by Margaret Worth, a children's rights researcher who works for Human Rights Watch, who has been looking into the issue and trying to help the children at work. Indonesia isn't just the only place that subjects children to harm. Australia annually imports $16 million worth of tobacco for child labor. This includes tobacco produced in the U.S. Tobacco cultivation is extremely labor-intensive, and children are also often subjected to serious health risks, including nicotine poisoning. Just like in Indonesia, they are also beaten or punished if they are caught slacking or not working at all. Most cigarette smokers are unaware of the origins of the tobacco they consume. My second assertion is the child's supervisor or employer can be threatening too. It's not just the job itself that can be life-threatening to the child at work. Their supervisor, employer, boss, or whoever is in charge can be also as dangerous. I'm not sure how you say this, the Dhaka, Bangladesh, a 9-year-old boy was killed while working in a textile mill. The boy was killed for protesting against his officer's abusive ways and actions on the job. He died due to extensive injuries from air being pumped up his rectum by a compression machine. A pretty graphic story, but that's what happened. His father reports that their officer regularly abused them for making the littlest mistakes. Finally, my third assertion is that child labor is a cruel act that forces children at a very young age to work from dusk till dawn with little to no pay. Child labor is a big issue around the world. Big importers use child labor to lower the cost of their product and make them able to sell it for more. Young children from the age of 5 are in factories all day long from dusk to dawn, again with little to no pay. My evidence behind this is that a shortage of labor is turning into a bigger and bigger problem when smaller countries are beginning to develop and become bigger. This problem can be solved by letting these children work from different families so that they can get more money and help their jobs get filled in. So again, my 3 assertions. Assertion 1, child labor puts children's lives at risk. My second assertion, the child's supervisor or employer can be life-threatening. And my third assertion, child labor is a cruel act that forces children at a very young age to work for long hours. Thank you.
Okay, just so that you know, that was 3 minutes and 38 seconds.
Are my opponents ready? Okay. So, there are a few positive sides of child labor which can be discussed alongside its negative impact. Many people from different countries are asking to ban child labor completely, but amusingly, there is a huge amount of people in developing countries that support it. You may be asking, why on earth would they support this generally hatred issue? We strongly negate the resolution that halt trade with nations that practice child labor. My name is Aoi Nakamura, and we strongly disagree that we should stop trading with nations that practice child labor. So, My first assertion is we should start off with the issue. So we would like to start off the issue that child labor is not all bad. There's some positive sides of child labor. The reason child labor should not be taken that serious is because there are many people in the world that make their kids work. It's to support their family. The children can contribute to family income. Income from children can be a huge support to poor families. In developing countries, family income always has been below poverty level. In most cases, the weak and elderly people cannot work to afford medication or food. That's when the kids come in clutch. To ease this situation, some income from the children have taken an impact on families. My second assertion. So another reason why it's not bad is because the parents can use their kids in family businesses. Reasoning for that, in developing countries, you often see children helping their parents in their business. For example, there's a kid named Imran Hossein. He helps his father work in the fields and help him study for his father's exams. It doesn't hamper his education. The father also did very good on his exams, thanks to Imran. Since he was helping out his father so much, he started to earn more money for the family. These are some examples of child labor. So banning child labor would be a huge impact in third world countries. So my third assertion, trading with countries that use child labor. There's nothing wrong with child labor. I think all kids should start working when they're young, so they get the feeling of working and how to be responsible. I think it is a bad idea not to trade with other countries with child labor, because if they don't trade, we won't get the things we need. There are a lot of things that we don't have that Africa has. If we stop trading with other countries such as Africa, we could be actually doing more harm to them because they don't have anything else. So if we ban child labor, then they have nothing left. So they really need the extra help from their kids and make enough money to support their family. Africa has a large quantity of natural resources, including diamonds, salt, gold, iron, cobalt, uranium, copper, bauxite, silver, plutonium, and cocoa beans, but also woods and tropical fruits. American sudden interest in Africa has far less to do with its subjectively defined term terrorism than in Africa's rich and diverse cache of natural resources. West African oil has added benefit of having shorter transport routes in the U.S. This makes African oil very attractive to the U.S. So my three assertions are child labor is all that bad. There's a positive side to child labor. My second assertion is it's not that bad because kids work for their families and to help their business. My third assertion is why we shouldn't stop trading with other countries that use child labor.
Are my opponents ready? Is the timekeeper ready?
Ready.
Okay. Hello, my name is Cody, and this is why we feel child labor is a bad thing. Our team against the resolution, we feel that child labor is a bad thing because it forces kids to work, including in harsh conditions. To rebuttal what the opponent said, child labor shouldn't be taken seriously, but this violates some laws that I will be sharing in my assertion. Therefore, child labor is a bad thing that violates laws. My opponent also said that there is nothing wrong with kids working at a young age, but we could also get the items from other places that don't have child labor. Therefore, this is false that there is nothing wrong with child working at a young age. My first assertion is that child labor should be stopped because where a child is forced into a business or industry, especially if it's considered illegal or inhumane. A child shouldn't be forced into labor even if the family doesn't have enough money. Evidence behind this is about 15 years ago, China achieved its goal of universal primary education, which managed to wipe out most of child labor in China. but approximately 11,575,000 kids aged between 10 to 14 are forced to work in China. This violates Article 32 of the Convention of Rights of the Child, which states, "You have the right to protection from work that harms you and is bad for your health, and prevents you from receiving an education. If you work, you have the right to be safe and paid fairly." My second additional assertion is that child labor is unfair to the children. The reason why child labor should be stopped is because it is unfair. Some children are forced into labor because they need to be able to support the family and forced under the working legal age. We feel that this is wrong. An estimated 100,000 Mexican children under the age of 14 work in crops for pay. One girl named Alejandrina is 12 and wanted to become a teacher, but instead she was forced to become a nomadic laborer, harvesting peppers from farm to farm. Alejandrina, at the age of 12, had to carry 15 pounds of load each day. One row over was her brother, Fidel, who couldn't keep up with his sister and was working on the same farm with their cousin, Jesus, who worked hard but also fell behind the work. Alejandria said, "I wish I was home with my baby brother," as they had to work in order to get money for food. My third assertion is that child labor is a cruel act that forces children that are very young to work from dusk till dawn with very little or no pay. Child labor is a big issue around the world. Big importers use child labor to lower the cost of their product and make them able to sell it for more. Young children from the age of 5 in factories all day long from dusk till dawn with barely any pay. A big example of where child labor is key in large companies such as Apple or even Nike. These two huge companies we all own and buy from use child labor and force work on young children. These kids live in poverty, and it is the only way for them to get some money for food and to feed themselves. So overall, we feel that child labor is a bad thing because it is unfair to the children. It also forces them to work in harsh conditions, and it is also some places illegal to have child under the working age to work. Thank you.
Is everybody ready? Okay. No. Oh, okay. There's a kid named Omar. He's 12 years old. He barely lives his life. He's stuck in a factory working all day, but what he realizes, he needs to do this for his family. His brothers never eat. He saw one of his siblings die of starvation. His parents bounce from house to house with him, and he's barely getting by in life. Hello, my name is Kimo. My first assertion is, child labor is necessary for some families. The boy I talked about, Omar, lives in Niger with his 2 brothers and his mom and dad. His parents only make 89 cents a day, which can barely even cover the price of food for them for a week, if not even the food for a week. Cody said that children are forced into labor, but that is not always true. Omar had the choice. His parents asked him if he wanted to work, and he said yes. So he makes 50 cents a day, which is barely anything, just carrying around a cooler with fruit in it, selling it to strangers. He notices that this doesn't really do much for his family, but at least he gets the feeling that he's doing something to help his family. And now if we stop trading with countries that use child labor, what kind of job would Omar have? He'd just be sitting around doing nothing, watching his family fall apart. And less than that, holding trade with these countries would cause an economical downfall, which would result in them having less money to spend on schools, helping the community, and supplying food for those civilians that are in dire need. My second assertion is that stopping or halting trade with nations won't stop child labor. If you think that if we stop trading with a country just because they use child labor, you're wrong. That country will somehow find another country that doesn't see that as such a big issue and will trade with them. What we should do is, we should trade with them and try to negotiate them, bringing down the percentage of child labor, or trying to cut it down. this is another example of this happening in history is Germany did this to Turkey about the Armenian genocide. Turkey was having some problems paying Germany for their trades that they're having. So what Germany decided to do was, So Germany negotiated with Turkey, if you don't figure this out, we will declare the Armenian genocide a genocide. So Turkey quickly decided to help pay Germany. They even paid them more money. You could call this blackmail, but blackmail got the job done. So if we do this with other countries saying, if you don't help us out here, if you don't cut down child labor, maybe we won't trade with you. Maybe we'll find another country to trade with that will do something about this problem. My third assertion is that these countries that use child labor have resources that we can't get anywhere else. Like in Africa, they have the resource known as coltan, which helps power your electronic devices and everything that's in your daily life. Say we stop trading with Africa because they use child labor. They only charge 60 grams a kilo for coltan. And they'll say we want to go to Brazil, they would charge $80 a kilo for the coltan. And even if we went to Australia, they charge $100 a kilo for coltan. So yeah, that would cost us a little more money, but it would also affect how much money, I screwed up, okay? It would affect how much these devices cost to us. So if you want to go to a different country and spend more money, that's fine. It's like going to a store where you see an apple for 50 cents. While you could buy it there, you decide to go to a different store where it sells it for $2. So child labor is necessary in countries. We don't want to trade with countries that use child labor, but sometimes it's for the better of us. And yeah. Okay, yeah.
Okay, so actually no, it's not written yet. Okay, so proposition gets the last word. So, yeah, so it's out of order. So that means Kiki goes, and she will be doing the rebuttal and waiting the argument. Now.
All right. Hi, my name is Kiki Taylor, and I'm the final opposition speaker. Okay, so in our first speaker, Griffin, stated that Samuel stole food and got killed for stealing food. I know that he was a child and working in labor, but he didn't really get killed due to child labor. It was more that it was like his own wrongdoings of stealing food from somebody else. Secondly, everyone is saying that it is unfair to children because they are being forced into child labor. But most of the children are making this choice for themselves because they need it for their families, and everyone has to work so that in order to survive and get food. Okay, so our first assertion is that there are positive sides of child labor because it is a contribution of income. It helps with family businesses, and all kids need to learn how to work at a young age. So, hold on, I kind of messed that up. But those are all three of our assertions. We trade with most countries that practice child labor. Therefore, if we put a halt to it, then our economy will go down and we won't have enough supplies, and this would affect all of the U.S. This has a short-term effect because it will mess up the American trading system until we are able to get it going again. That's all we have. Thank you.
So remember, a good way to end is to restate your resolution, right? Instead of saying that's all or goodbye. Just restate the resolution. Okay, so now we're going to learn about the proposition rebuttal.
Okay, so child labor affects
our lives everywhere. Majority of our clothing and some of our products that we use in our everyday lives, such as our smartphones, were made by and forced by child labor in other countries. First off, I'd like to start by saying that child labor is illegal. It is an international law that underage working isn't legal, and I'd like to rebut what Kimo said, saying Africa has many things that America doesn't have resource-wise, but Africa is not a big importer for us. Our main importers are China and also India. And rebutting what Kiki said, saying that it was his own wrongdoing stealing the food, he got killed while doing child labor because he was hungry while doing work, and he went out to go steal the food because he had to eat or else he would have died of starvation. Kids shouldn't learn to work at a young age because they might not be doing that later in life, and that can cause physical and mental health problems. For example, one of the children that wanted to work wanted to become a teacher, but she was forced into child labor against her will so that she could work in fields and help pay for her family's food. I'd also like to rebut that halt trade should continue. This is a statement by one of the speakers, and if halt trades continue, people will begin to think that it is starting to become more and more okay when it's not. More children would suffer, along with the millions that already are, and there would possibly start a war. And also what Kimo said, saying some kids are choosing to do child labor. Child labor isn't forced upon. Child labor is sometimes when the child gets kidnapped and is forced into labor to work until they drop dead. After that, instead of showing remorse for the children and taking him away, they get another kid to take his place. Thank you.
Okay. That was great, right? Give them a hand. Okay, so let's just spend a little bit of time giving them some feedback. So from where you sat,